I believe Trustee Johnson's on the phone? Not yet. Okay, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for working hard on that. Are you ready to get started? Yeah. Are we good? Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'd like to welcome everybody today. I'm President Garcia Morales, and I call this regular board meeting of September 12th to order. The time is 5:01 p.m. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence electronic devices. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the territorial homelands of the Nuwu, the Mawapa Band of Paiutes, and the Las Vegas Band of Paiutes. Okay. We have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Guzman, but I want to go ahead and acknowledge the students before they get started and welcome into the room. The presentation of colors will be led by Sunrise Mountain High School, ROTC. That's Danielle Hernandez, Cadet Staff Sergeant, Mia Beatriz, Cadet Staff Sergeant, George Medea Gomez, Cadet Captain, Daisy Morales, Cadet Staff Sergeant, Daniel Lemon, Senior Aerospace Science Instructor, Colonel Retired, United States Air Force. Trustee Guzman? Please have a seat. Thank you, students. Trustee Brooks, you're ready to make the motion of the agenda?
Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the following changes. Revised reference material for item 2.05, Unified Personnel Employment. Reference material for item 3.01, Superintendent Search.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. Do I have a second? Trustee Guzman?
I second.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Brooks, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 5-0. Right. Before I move on and open consent, if there's anybody in the audience who has not had a chance to complete a yellow public speaker card, please do so now. Okay. All right, colleagues, forgive me for just 1 second. I want to touch base and check if Trustee Bustamante Adams is on the line.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Trustee Johnson, are you present? Not yet? Okay, thank you. For the purposes, given that Trustee Bustamante Adams was on the line while we took the last vote for consent, for adoption of the agenda, please, I'd like to please recount that vote, redo that vote. So we have a motion, colleagues, by Trustee Brooks, a second by Trustee Guzman, excuse me. First by Trustee Brooks, a second by Trustee Guzman. Please cast your vote. Trustee Bustamante Adams? Thank you. Okay, colleagues, that motion passes 6-0. All right. We're going to now move on to the consent agenda. If anybody who's in the audience and has not completed their yellow speaker card, please do so now. Once we begin public speakers, we will go ahead and no longer take yellow cards. We'll begin with individuals who signed up in advance. Dr. Bimol.
Good evening, Tiffany Beamel for the record. 2.19 is a revision, I think, in acceptance for site-based decision-making. Section 3, paragraph G addresses equity and diversity, and Section P addresses information tech services. Teaching for equity allows the differences to transform the way we think, teach, learn, and act, such that all experiences and ways are being handled with fairness and justice. Teaching for diversity refers to acknowledging a range of differences in the classroom. It's difficult to teach for equity and diversity with the imbalance of unfunded mandates in CCSD, specifically related to technology. Chromebooks are required for each student. I love it. I am a technology-driven teacher. I flipped my classroom over a decade ago. When we started using Google Classroom, I dove in headfirst and took every PD available to learn what I could to be able to maximize the potential of utilizing technology in the 21st century classroom. I am 100% all in when it comes to technology. It is, however, difficult to justify the cost to schools when the schools have to pay for unfunded mandate that every student be issued one-to-one technology with no real consequence for breaking or damaging the technology. Sure, if a student breaks the technology, the school can fine them, but can the school really do anything about said fines? Not really. At the end of the day, high schools write off hundreds of dollars in senior fines so seniors can walk at graduation. Schools across our district right now are fundraising for technology needs. There are schools requiring students to sell cookie dough and chocolate bars to be able to afford new Chromebooks. Sites have to decide between a licensed teacher or 300 Chromebooks for students because that's the offset cost. And why, you might ask? Unfunded mandates. The district requires that schools provide one-to-one technology for each student, but does not foot the bill. How is this site-based autonomy working if, according to Section 3, the district's responsibility is ensuring equity and diversity and information tech services are being met, if the schools cannot meet the needs of the students because they cannot afford these unfunded mandates? You all know I am not a fan of site-based autonomy. I do not think the rules should be different based on the zip codes, and they do, whatever you want to admit it or not. But if you're going to sit here and vote on a revised regulation to 2130, which clearly states the district is responsible for equity and diversity and tech services, then do it. Hold yourself accountable for these sections and fund the mandates you require of your schools, or let site-based autonomy work the way it's supposed to on paper, and let the site-based administrators decipher the one-to-one requirements the way they want, so equity and access can go out the window. Thank you.
Dr. Beamel, you're a regular at board meetings, and I know you know that anyone who has concerns has a superintendent and her team will be addressing them. But I want to be clear that the district purchases one-on-one technology for all students. I'm looking at Dr. Larson Mitchell, can you please come on the mic? I think that there may have been some misrepresentation of the insight. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the, no worries. Madam President, members of the board, for the record, Brenda Larson Mitchell. I would need to look into that. I don't want to misspeak, President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Larson Mitchell. That concludes public comment for consent agenda items. At this time, colleagues, I am looking for a motion. Trustee Guzman.
Madam President, I move to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you. Trustee Brooks.
Second.
Thank you. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Brooks. Please cast your vote. Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Yay.
Thank you, colleagues. The motion passes 6-0. We're going to now move on to the warrants. Trustee Guzman.
Thank you, President Garcia Morales. Ratified warrants as listed in the bills payable transmittal and board memorandum number 404-24-25 in the total amount of $167,686,181.72.
Thank you for that, Trustee Guzman. All right, colleagues, we're going to move on to item 3.01. That's the superintendent search, presentation, and discussion with HYA and Associates of the draft leadership profile, which includes the survey report and focus group analysis and possible action regarding changes to the leadership profile. Okay. I am present to that this is this is an action item, so if anybody would like to provide public comment on it, please submit your yellow cards now. Otherwise, once we begin the presentation, we will no longer be taking yellow cards. Okay? Dr. Joseph, you want to turn on your mic? It is all you.
Well, good evening, trustees. It's great to see you once again. We have been busy at work preparing for this evening and the future process that we have. And tonight, what we wanted to do is just share with you a draft of our leadership profile, and we're communicating it is simply a draft. Remember, on the 26th, you will actually vote on it. So this is an opportunity to give you an idea of what we're thinking and where we're going. The board has the opportunity to give us additional feedback, and then we'll bring it back to you on the 26th. So the profile has been developed by collecting multiple sources of data to develop the leadership profile, and we've arrived at a set of desired characteristics for recruitment and selection of the next superintendent through looking at your strategic plan, interviewing all board members, having individual interviews with individuals, focus groups, having CCSD meetings, and then the stakeholder survey. The focus group protocols, again, we've been facilitating focus groups throughout Clark County, and we've asked these three essential questions. What do stakeholders value regarding your schools? What strengths do they arise to retain and build upon? What strengths, do they desire to retain and build upon? What are the issues this district currently faces? What will you face in the next 3 to 5 years? And what personal and professional characteristics are expected in the next superintendent? And then, of course, individuals have provided other insights that they felt they wanted to share as well, and we've captured all of those. And when you get the final leadership profile, you'll have a summary from each focus group, just to, we kind of summarize what happened there, so you can have a high level of what was communicated. We have had, or will have by the 26th, 51 focus groups offered to constituents to provide input into the development of this draft. We've also had the survey that had 13,749 individuals take it. 48.6% of the people who completed the survey were parents, and you can see the breakdown of all the different stakeholder groups that provided feedback. And so that really helps us to triangulate between the survey data as well as the focus group data that we've gotten as we're going through. And again, knowing we haven't finished focus groups, so that we do expect this may change, may not, but know that it's just a draft because we've not finished gathering the data from the focus groups, but we will. The priorities for the future section of the survey illustrates the common desires of respondent groups. Extremely rare are there statements that are the top rated for every respondent group, yet here in Clark County, the results showed the same top 2 priorities for every constituent group that we interviewed, including students. And the 2 top priorities that came up were 1, recruit, employ, and retain effective personnel throughout Clark County and its schools, and 2, foster a unifying, positive, professional climate of mutual respect and trust amongst faculty, staff, and students. Additional consensus is seen for the following priorities that were in the survey: to have an effectively plan and manage the long-term financial health of Clark County schools, to provide transparent communication, to establish a culture of high expectations for all students and personnel, and to demonstrate a deep understanding of educational research and emerging best practices. So as we develop the characteristics, Hazard, Young, and Atia triangulated data from multiple sources to arrive at a set of desired characteristics for the recruitment and selection of the next superintendent for Clark County Public Schools. But even when there's conflicting, contrasting, inconsistent, or contradictory desires are reported, which is normal when you're surveying so many different groups, common themes do emerge that are important to most constituents. It was our job to find the consensus that existed between those disparate groups. So we have 5 characteristics that are themes that emerged from all of this data, and those themes were: 1, a superintendent that was relational and who was a transformational leader; 2, a superintendent that was data-driven; 3, a superintendent who would be a strong financial steward; 4, a superintendent who would be an effective communicator; and 5, a superintendent who was knowledgeable of Clark County and Nevada proper. So I'll just briefly go through some of the highlights there, and there's more detail in the actual written profile that I'll be sharing tonight. So I'm not going to read everything to you. I'll just pull some highlights for the public to hear who do not have this at this time. So as we talk about a relational transformational leader, stakeholders shared that they wanted a leader who could unify the district, who could drive change, restore trust, and rebuild the district's reputation. The person should be accessible, approachable, and inclusive. And there were concerns consistently expressed about a culture that was micromanaging, and there seemed to be a lack of trust between district leadership, school-level faculty, and staff. Parents wanted to feel as though they were actual partners and involved in decision-making. Students wanted their voices heard at all levels throughout the organization. And the number one sentiment was to employ a superintendent that knows how to encourage, inspire, and motivate employees and the community to support schools to perform in ways that were meaningful and sustainable for student success. Across constituent groups, there was an expressed need for a superintendent that could rebuild morale, prioritize student and teacher well-being, support building level administrators, and reduce bureaucratic burdens. It was shared that the next leader should be intentional about creating both internal and external infrastructure to effectively collaborate with a multitude of stakeholders. And there was also a call for a superintendent who would respect the diversity of the workforce and build strong internal and powerful partnerships within the organization and within community organizations. So that was what we talked about when we talked about a relational transformational leader. And then as we moved into decision-making, lack of alignment, constant changes in programming, vague reasoning, and unstructured use of resources were words that were used to describe the current reality within Clark County. Staff in particular shared that they were unclear on how decisions are made, and they're unclear about how curricular resources are selected and implemented within the district. 25% of survey respondents strongly agreed that Clark County makes decisions based on information from data and research, which means 75% that the community did not feel that in terms of teachers. So that's why we pointed that out. There was a desire for a clear data-focused plan that all constituents could rally around and understand. And there was a desire for organizational focus by reducing the number of initiatives employed at one time at the school level to focus on execution. Key performance indicators, utilizing data to make decisions, creating an evidence-based culture, and a focus on student outcomes were descriptors that were used by stakeholders. And one of the 4 most important priorities for students and parents was that the next superintendent demonstrate a deep understanding of educational research and emerging best practices and implement strategies. As we went into financial stewardship, I think a lot of this centered really around multiple stakeholders communicating that the next superintendent really needs to prioritize compensation for teachers and support professionals to remain competitive regionally and nationally within Clark County. They also all 11 board members shared that it's important for the next superintendent to have an understanding of finances, but it's more important for the superintendent to ensure that there's an exceptional chief financial officer, ensuring that finances are appropriately spent and monitored and supported and support classroom acceleration. and 20% of survey respondents agreed or strongly agreed that Clark County was financially responsible. And in the stakeholder survey, effectively plan and manage the long-term financial health of the district was the third highest rated priority. And then moving into knowledge of Clark County School District, most stakeholders understood that there are few districts as large as Clark County Public Schools. So there was an acknowledgement that it's okay if the superintendent came from a mid-sized or a large district. I think what was important to people as they communicated was the person had demonstrated results. And it was also important that the next superintendent understands the complexities of Nevada's legislature and your funding structures. And if they're not from Nevada, they must demonstrate an ability to have strong political acumen and an ability to study and navigate the political structure of Nevada. Some argued that an internal candidate would have the necessary experience, the connections to the community, and the nuanced understandings of Clark County's complexities, while others equally shared that it's critical to appoint an external candidate who would give outside perspective and address longstanding issues such as ineffective management, instructional improvement, and diversity within leadership positions within the district. And then finally, an effective communicator. Stakeholders expressed a desire for a leader who is clear, and a transparent communicator. 27% of survey respondents agree or strongly agree that there is transparent communication from Clark County, and 26% agree or strongly agree that Clark County provides a clear, compelling vision for the future. Constituents wanted a strong, visionary chief communicator who could speak with sincerity, clarity, and be inspirational. And constituents want to understand why policies and procedures exist and want frequent and transparent communications. So in summary, these 5 areas, again, relational, transformational, data-driven, someone who would be a strong financial steward, an effective communicator, and knowledgeable of Clark County and Nevada proper, were the desired characteristics that emerged from the data that we had. And then also included in your packet is information that's connected to the surveys. So in terms of next steps, we will continue with our focus groups. The full report of the focus groups will be provided as an attachment when we complete all of the focus groups. The board can further review this draft and discuss it with me, and I'm happy to make edits. I'll pull my computer out and start capturing notes if you want to share now, and of course you can communicate offline as well. And the revised profile will come to the board on September 26th of this month. And I can open it up for questions there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph. I want to just touch base and see if any of your colleagues are on the phone. Is there anyone else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Dr. Perez and we have
Hello,
Dr. Adams.
Hi. And he
Yes.
said-
Just Dr. Perez or Dr. Adams, anything else you'd like to share?
Good evening. I'll go ahead and start. Madam President, members of the board, and for the record, my name is Kawita Adams with HYA and Associates. It has been outstanding to be able to work and hear from the different focus groups. The elected officials had very good input. While it was a small group, they really expressed that one of the things that they were concerned about was to have someone who had a background in business administration, ethical leadership, and the ability to build deep community relationships. And we've heard that. The other piece, I had the honor and privilege of hosting and conducting the rural schools focus group. And I think one of the things that was very prominent in their discussion was to have someone who has an understanding of the rural community and looking for a superintendent who can balance the district-wide policies and the standards with the flexibility needed in the rural areas. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you so very much.
And I'm here tonight to take any questions. I really don't have anything more to add to the comments already made by Ms. Adams and Dr. Joseph. Nancy Perez for the record.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you all. Before we get started with Q&A or ask questions, I'd love to open it up to public comment. Colleagues, are you good with that? Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and start with individuals who signed up in advance. And then that is Kenny Belknap. Are you here? Kenny, followed by Dr. Beamol. And then after Dr. Thank you. Go ahead, Kenny. After Dr. Beamol, Christian Kiliani, please.
Good evening, School Board of Trustees. For the record, my name is Kenny Belknap. I'm a social studies teacher at Liberty High School, and I also serve as the vice president of the Clark County Education Association. The decisions you're making on the search and eventual selection of our next superintendent are by far the most important ones this board will make. The choices will have ripple effects for years to come for the education of our students. This process must be done in a way to build back trust between the community we all serve and CCSD. Former Trustee Williams resigning yesterday was just a first step in building back that trust. CCEA is calling for a full investigation into the role of President Garcia Morales played in the protection and covering up of the fact that Katie Williams did not live in her district. Allegations that she did not live in her district were brought to President Morales' attention back in March and every month since. Either she knew and covered for Katie or was negligent in her duties as board president. CCA is also calling on the board to go back and review all votes and motions that were decided on a 4-3 vote where Williams was in the majority. The students, educators, and communities that you all serve are owed this at least. Trustees can do this. There is no law that prevents trustees from reconsidering previous votes. It is unethical to allow decisions made by someone who couldn't even bother to live in our community to stand, especially around a decision as important as the one you're making. The students, educators, and community you all serve deserve better. Last, with the superintendent search, we believe the cover-up of Katie Williams' residency was part of a bigger inside game being played to see Brenda Larson-Mitchell named permanent superintendent. Williams has been a part of a voting bloc on this board, as well as Trustee Brooks and Garcia Morales, that have been adamant in seeing Brenda Larson-Mitchell named the new superintendent. We strongly believe that dragging this out and covering it up was to ensure that there were enough votes to make Brenda Larson-Mitchell the permanent superintendent. If this process is to be trusted by the public, we must do the hard work now, and that starts with all of you doing the right thing. Get to the bottom of why a trustee was able to get away with living outside of our state for months, making decisions for our community for months, and go back and revisit all the decisions she made and help make sure that we have a fair process in the selection of our next superintendent. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Beamol?
Tiffany Beamol for the record. I participated in the licensed educator focus group. That should not be a shock to anyone. I just want to say Kawita was our moderator, and she was wonderful. I thought there was an excellent discourse amongst our group, and we got some great ideas on the table. As I have been speaking to my colleagues who also participated in their focus groups, and my students and parents who participated, there is some concern that this might be an in one ear and out the other exercise in futility. I just want to note that a lot of people took a lot of time out of their lives because they have an investment in this district and making the necessary changes to move the needle in the right direction. We have an investment in true transparency, in honest accountability, in honoring and securing high-quality educators, and in making sure our students are getting 21st century skills that will make them viable members of society. We need to make sure These are not just placations to silence the masses. I truly hope the board will take what is being said and really digest it. The people are speaking. Have the guts to listen and let them be heard. It's not just about the few of us who show up here. I know you're tired of hearing us. I get it. I'm tired of hearing me too. They showed up at these focus groups, though, because they wanted to be heard. So let their voices be heard. Your stakeholders deserve that much of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Good evening, Chris Giunkiliani. Asking again, it's time to slow it down a bit. There's no rush. Your calendars are a guideline for you. You can always change your dates. In the long run, this is about doing it right so that you're focusing on the public and the public input that the doctor just shared with us. And I think the public's right on, spot on as far as we're concerned. Last meeting, I think Trustee Brooks, Ms. Perez mentioned something about, oh, we need to act swiftly. No, we don't. It's about openness, consistency, and fairness. Why is an application out for them before you finish the leadership profile? That's nonsensical to me. What are you, they're going to come out around and be amended again? Why not do it right in the first place? There's no longer a rush. I was not surprised. I was thrilled to see that fostering a unified, positive, professional climate of mutual respect among faculty, staff, and administration was the second top. I submit that it's at the top because all of those involved with the HARA and current administration haven't led by creating a unified, positive professional climate. It's been based on loyalty, retribution, micromanagement, and secrecy. Take the time to find the right person to meet the needs of this district. Thank you.
I believe that concludes public comment. Thank you. All right, colleagues, we're going to go ahead and please jump in the queue if you have questions. And thank you again for adhering to time guidelines so that everyone has equitable time. All right, Trustee Guzman, you're up first.
Okay, I'm just setting my time. So, okay, I have a couple of questions. I really like this profile, but I'm wondering, because our focus groups are going until later on in September, are you going to have enough time to compile all that data? I'm just curious about this because I've had to compile data for my degrees, and it takes a while.
Thank you for the question. We have been working on this leadership profile since the first focus groups and survey started. As you said, it's an enormous amount of data. And so as you'll notice on this draft, we do not have the summaries for the focus groups complete because the focus groups are not complete. And so we want to make sure that we encompass everybody's voice. Those may alter slightly the descriptions underneath the key profile areas. It perhaps could even change one of them, but given the enormity of the data that we have from the survey and the focus groups and interviews so far, I think it might add some more dimension, but I don't see the key 5 areas changing drastically from the rest of the focus groups. Again, I want to emphasize that those write-ups have not been done yet because they are not complete. And I also wanted to just emphasize that although the application has been live, people go into that application and are modifying it through the deadline date. And that's because just like doing this survey, there's lots of information for people to compile in order to get their application together. And so they absolutely have time from tonight and seeing the first draft through the final draft to make changes before they submit their application.
Thank you. I also want to know, because there is so much data and there might be some changes, is there a need for us to extend our timeline? I keep hearing it over and over and over again in our community that there's a need to extend the timeline. I want to know from the people who are actually compiling the data, is there a need?
I don't believe
Well,
there's. Oh,
So please, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I would say, I don't believe there's a need to slow that down in terms of, we have, on this particular team, I mean, you have myself and you have Dr. Montoya, who are qualitative researchers. So we deal with large data sets all the time. So actually pulling the data and figuring what's there, that's not very difficult for this particular team.
Okay,
Also, we do have, there are, I think, a number of very strong candidates who are interested and involved. We've been talking to, engaged with, as things come out, they're understanding the process and timeline as we've been talking. So, they're right along queue to see things, make the adjustments. They know how to make the adjustments. So no one's feeling pressured or, last minute in terms of the process that's involved as we're going through. So I don't think extending would get you any better candidates. I think, in fact, it could deter, some candidates that were in the process and are actively paying attention to every detail of the process that as we're moving through, because our timelines have been published. So those who have been involved that we know of, because there are people now that don't say anything until the last minute, and we're prepared for that as well. Like we are cleared the calendar to know once it closes to really go through, vet, evaluate based upon the profile that will be finalized on the 26th, to be able to come back appropriately on October 2nd. I believe we have it to present an initial slate, or to say to you, we don't think that there are enough people here to present a slate.
okay. Thank you. Sorry, my time's up.
Thank you.
And
Trustee
I just want to further that in terms of the responses for developing this the desired characteristics, this leadership profile, it has been extraordinary. I mean, the response rate and the representative nature of those responses have been fantastic. In fact, I made a little of analogy in my comments at the last board meeting, how, we see, especially at the time that we're in right now, all kinds of polls being done about where Americans are leaning on issues, and they're based off of 1,500 to 2,000 respondents, and that's for 300 million Americans. We're making statements about this district, and we have 10 times the number of respondents where we really feel comfortable about making these statements and about bringing you tonight these desired characteristics. When you look at the number of respondents from the survey, in addition to 1,579 people responded to all of the sign-up requests to be a part of the different focus groups. Some of them may not have shown up, but then another 103 gave feedback on a evaluation instrument. And so there's plenty of data. No more time is needed. I feel very, very good and confident about how we have triangulated this data and brought together a desired characteristics, a leadership profile for you tonight that is very representative of your community. As Sean said, that timeline has been published. People are looking at it. And I do think that matters. But ultimately, the work that we're doing can be and can successfully stay on this timeline through the next month, which is still another 6 weeks away, by the way.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the queue. Trustee Baron.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I have a kind of question. I actually was able to attend the focus group in North Las Vegas with the elected officials. And after one senator showed up, there was a grand total of 7. And talking to a few of the elected officials that I was in contact with, some of them complained that they didn't get any notice about this actually happening until like the day before. And yes, I know life happens. And the elected officials, whether they're a city councilman, commissioner, state leaders, including some which are going to be probably on the education committee as elected officials here, they want to be heard. They're part of the this overall block of the community who they have their own constituents have questions. They're there not just representing themselves; they're representing their community as well. And so my first question is, are we sure that we're actually getting their information out to them? Because apparently many of them are complaining to me that this is just not happening. And number two, we still have a little bit of time left. Do you have any suggestions as how we could actually still get their input? Because it looks like, again, we have this, we do have a deadline, but this is a constructed deadline. And it's not like when you begin to build a house, sometimes plans change as you're building the house, as realities emerge. And the reality is here, with all respect to the amount of responses here, they're very small compared to the entire amount of people here in the district. We're talking about very small percentages. Sometimes some of them are even less than 1%. And so, could you please talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, two things I would say. One, if you have a group of leaders that you know that has not had the opportunity to, speak with us, that want to speak with us, simply give me their names, and I'll make sure that we facilitate a group with them to address their concerns. They're important constituents, and that's an easy fix on that one. The second component, I would say, is you see the draft now. Now that you have a draft of the, I forget the number, the over 10,000 people that contributed, I would say, ask yourself as you read it, is there something missing? If you think so, share what that is, and we'll work towards it. If you feel that the sentiment here is accurate, that it feels right, and you have an opportunity now, because you're putting this out to the public, for the public to respond and react to it. Maybe we can set something up for the public to get feedback on the actual profile, where we can capture data from people as they look at it. That could be a second way to help us refine it.
Thank you. I'm going to put you back in the queue. Trustee Barron, if you have any additional follow-up. Trustee Sparsa-Stroff.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph and team. So I am grateful because you, I want to say up front, have been very responsive to some of the nuances of us having to pivot with the needs of the communities. And for example, I want the public to be aware that there are translators that have been provided by CCSD, so that when they go to a session, that if they need translation services, that will be offered. What I want to get to is, I went to a parent session, and our parents are amazing, so engaged. And so I will tell you, a parent made a really powerful consideration that I think we are missing. You just talked about something's missing. When would we have an opportunity to take all of what they're saying and actually give it back to the community to have them verify and validate what they're expressing to us? And that was that parent's concern, because it's not just about the leadership profile, which is the goal to find the best leader for the district, but are we listening and validating the process that we're doing with the community? So that's a question directly from a parent.
Yes.
And then I do have a technical follow-up.
Yeah, so for that, at each focus group, once we're done, we collect and create a paragraph or two describing the themes, what we heard, what we gathered, and we do that immediately after, and then we send that to Nancy for as she's the keeper of the piece. So on the 26th, what you'll see is the full appendix for each of the groups. So you'll be able to see the summary. So for example, I facilitated a workshop with some teachers who are part of Clark County's Educational Association. So they'll see my paragraph summary there of what the issues were going through to do that. So that will be provided, so people will have all of that data to be able to look and see there.
Thank you for that answer. That provides feedback because then the community can go back and verify and say, is this really what we said?
Yes.
So technically, I want to support Trustee Guzman that I'm getting the same questions about the timeline. And I just want to put that out there. For example, people that join virtually, they're getting the link the day of, and not everyone is checking their emails. Like we have like some of us 4 emails, so we don't check all of them. So I think that's something with the remaining groups. Can we change that process? Can they receive the link ahead of time? Because then they can feel validated and be able to show up and have advance notice and not just be given a link that day.
I'll defer to Dr. Perez on that one, as she's been.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna step back and answer a bunch of the questions, just kind of about the technicalities of setting all these groups up. So we did start sending out announcements back in August with the first group that actually met on the 20th. We also then worked with CCSD where blasts were done through your parent link, and that's how students also got the information. They also sent out all the emails to all the employees. We sent out, for example, elected officials were brought out. We sent emails to them, links to the registrations. We had 105 on our list of elected officials, and they've all received that multiple times. Then what we also do is right before or the day of the different meetings, we'll send out reminders. And then people who didn't show up for previous ones that maybe had a last minute conflict or couldn't show up, we'll just include them on the next one to see if maybe we can pick up a few more that maybe had a last minute conflict. So we'll also send reminders out to those that signed up for another session but didn't come. We'll include them then in future sessions. Today, for example, all of the reminders went out for next week's sessions, including the links for the virtual sessions, but those will also be sent out again on the day of and right before. We also do highlight on the sign-up sheets what sessions will be available with translation or a bilingual facilitator. So that's also on the sign-up sheets. And then finally, when somebody does go to the website and says, hey, I just didn't get a link, I want to participate, but I didn't get an invitation, those are being monitored in real time. And so as soon as we get anyone that puts forward that they wanted an invite, we then send them the appropriate invite and we document that. And so there have been 71 individuals that have sent a information to HYA saying, hey, could I please get more information? And then we have given them the proper invitation. Also, I have to say that we do monitor the email that these things are coming from. And so I've gotten some great replies to people who said, wow, I can't believe there's somebody that's actually responding to this. We thought it was a bot. And it's like, no, here I am. What can I do to help you? And there's just different questions. I think I missed my session. I missed it. Can I go to another one? All of those are also being replied to make sure that we can get as many people as we can involved. Thank you to the board who did request at the last meeting that those URLs be sent out earlier. And as an example, today they went out for next week. So thank you for that. That direction, and I just want to say that we did follow through and have changed that. And by the way, there's still 9 more opportunities. So, it's not over. So if there's somebody that still wants to participate, those are out. There's still 2 more virtual, and then there's still 7 more in-person opportunities to participate next week and the following week.
And I would also add, now you have an opportunity, now that you have this draft out, if you put it on your website, I would encourage you to put a feedback piece so we can collect that feedback from anyone who reads it and they, can react and know that we'll take the time to read it. This is the opportunity for us to adjust and look. And if someone thinks we got something wrong, tell us and let us take another crack at it. If you think we got it right, tell us, and that'll affirm what we saw was there.
HYA, could you share with us what the where members of our community can access the list of available focus groups can be found? Where is that on the website?
It should be on
So-
your website. Yes.
Yeah, so on the website is all the information about the search. After tonight, the draft profile will be put there. We can provide that feedback link as well. And then there also is the link to get information, invitations to go to any of the additional focus groups.
Perfect, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Satori.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I have 3 questions, if I may. My first one I did ask before, but I want to circle back to it after attending. I'd asked about previously if we would be able to access the raw data rather than just the summary. And I was trying to explain like that's a large amount of data that we would not be receiving that. However, once I attended the MOAPA session with parents, which was for the size of the community, pretty well attended, probably 40 or 50. It was fantastic, great feedback, really enjoyed it. So after hearing that, I mean, you just gain so much more from actually hearing the conversation and hearing, more than just, kind of a summary of bullet points. So would it be possible for us to access the raw data or listen to the recordings of those to really be able to get more of a sense of what was stated?
I'll defer to Dr. Perez.
Yeah, and so I think we would need to discuss that with also council, because there's over 390 pages of raw data, and some of that would need to be redacted, given that personal names are in those comments. And so it really would be a pretty heavy lift on council's part. But, we serve at the pleasure of the district and of the board. I can tell you, I feel very confidently that the sentiments have been included in the desired characteristics and descriptions. If raw data is desired, certainly we have that. It would need to be looked at by council before it is made public, as there are personnel items that are in those comments.
Okay. Well, again, actually, I would say probably not any of the staff ones, administrator staff ones, but maybe the community ones as well. We wouldn't want to, I want them to have their confidentiality for sure. My second question was, it's been discussed about the possibility of extending the timeline, and that would, and I understand that HYA, they can get that you guys can get the job done in that amount of time. That I understand that, but based on the circumstances that are taking place with our board, if we were to extend or pause the timeline, would there be any additional cost associated with that?
No, there's no additional cost.
Okay. Just for clarification, thank you.
And one of the things that I would say also is the interviews and all of that are being done transparently and openly and in public. So any changes to the timeline could be just on the actual appointment. The actual interviews and people coming forward, that's open to everyone to see. There's nothing being done behind closed doors. So I think it's really about what the board decides in terms of when you guys are going to take action. The rest of it, I think, is all transparent out in the open and can continue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Which does kind of lead into my third question. We had talked before about being able to, and this one actually we had discussed, but I wanted to bring up kind of what I had heard in my conversations as well, about the community then being able to give feedback once they hear the interviews and actually see who the applicants are. And we talked about maybe a QR code or something like that, or some means for the community to be able to do that. But I did hear that quite repeatedly of, are we going to be able to give more feedback once we know who our candidates are?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
And we'll work with you on the best method for your community to do that. But there are a number of different ways that could be done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Satori.
And we have been using QR codes as a result of the sessions where people can give feedback after the focus groups as well. And that's been working well.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, my colleagues have helped me out by asking some of the questions beforehand. Dr. Joseph and the entire team, thank you so much for this. Very happy with the 2 top priorities that came out, very much aligned with what I'm hearing. A couple of questions here. When we are talking about the positive, unified positive professional climate of mutual trust and respect among faculty, staff, and administration. We're not talking about just school sites, we're talking about central and district leadership also?
Yes.
Okay, that was the easy one. I'll give you that one. Okay, so on the
Thank you
preference
for
for, throw you one here. So when we were talking about sharp divisions, preference for a school let's just say an educational leader as opposed to say somebody maybe coming from the corporate background, talking about business acumen, and basically we want the whole package here. Can you give a little bit of information on what the numbers were, the percentage? I've been trying to go through this. We just got this information yesterday. It was a lot to unpack, but I tried. So, because that's what I'm hearing, from the public also. Can you give me a little bit of elaboration on that, on the preference?
I don't know how specific I can be. The individuals, the focus groups, and the data that I gathered, and I interviewed all 11 board members. So I can give you all 11 board members. Generally, there was a preference for someone with educational experience, but being open to someone with other experiences. Like it wasn't a hard no for the majority of the board, but for.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Joseph. I was actually talking about what we got back from, what we have back from the focus groups, not so much the board, but more from the focus groups and what's in this profile.
So we had multiple people participating in the focus group, so I couldn't comfortably give you a percentage or anything.
Okay.
I couldn't do that. I can see maybe if Dr. Adams, who's participated in more focus groups than I, could answer that question.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that.
I can interject if you would like, Madam President, members of the board. One of the things that's been a general consensus is that the next superintendent would need to have a balance of the education piece, but also understanding how to run and operate a large business. And so it's looking at having the educational background, which among the teachers and administrators and the parents, that was extremely important. But then the backdrop to that is having that background in business and being able to run a large organization.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. How much time do I have, Trustee Guzman? None?
Concludes your time, but you're welcome to go back into the queue.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think I talked for 3 minutes. Does it count for like both of us? Oh, it does? Okay. I thought it was just like what I was talking and then his answers.
You're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll put myself back.
Trustee Barron, you have already gone. Have you gone? No, you have. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Trustee Brooks is next, and then you're back on, okay? Thank you. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. And welcome. I appreciate the information and your work. It's not uncommon, and I'm sure if you've studied the Clark County School District, it's not uncommon for the board or community to attempt to slow walk something. I'm sure you've experienced this in other communities. My question is, what do you think the potential negative impact for the candidate pool is? And also, what are some other behaviors that we should be aware of that reduces or negatively impacts the quality of candidates that apply?
Yeah, great question. I do think there's a potential to lose candidates by slowing down, because I think candidates look for boards that are clear in what they're looking for, that can work together to come to consensus, that might not agree, but are respectful of one another's opinions, allow one another to share opinions, and have a process to come to a conclusion. I think when boards are seemingly divided and candidates feel like, there's no matter what I say, what I do, there's a fix, or, that someone's, there's no way I'm going to win this person because of so-and-so. I think that dissuades a candidate from saying, why bother? Particularly in a public search. I think the challenge that states that have public searches have are that when someone puts themselves out there, particularly Clark County, look, you're the 5th largest district in the country. Lots of people are going to know who applied for this position, and lots of people are going to watch outside of Clark County. So that there's the politics of even engaging are high. Like a person is really risking a lot, particularly if they're sitting in a superintendency at the moment. So they want to know, I think, more than anything, that the process is just fair. And I think, and what I've been encouraging and talking to people about is, look, I actually think one of the fairest processes is one such as this, where it is public and open. And everybody sees everything at the same time, everybody hears everything at the same time, everybody sees people participating at the same time, and everybody's going to be giving their input at the same time. So that's actually, that's a good thing if you're a qualified candidate, because I'm like, look, worst case scenario, if you're strong, if you're competent, the world will know you're strong and competent. And if your current board, is willing to lose you because there was an opportunity to do a greater good in a place, then I'm sure you'll be hired somewhere else. I mean, worst case scenario. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's a reality in these type of high stakes interviews. But I do think when people believe the process is fair, there's clarity, there's focus. People do what they say they're going to do and follow through. People are more confident to go into this type of interview, which is very public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know
Trustee
my
Brooks,
time.
you are out of time. Do you mind if we go back
no,
into the queue?
you're good.
Thank you. Trustee Barron?
Yeah, is there a possibility for making a contingency plan if for any reason we have to amend the timeline in this board search? And the reason why I ask, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to affect the quality of the people who are going to be applying for this position, I think that probably most of the people who are going to be applying for this position are already superintendents somewhere. They just barely started a school year. So, I mean, if we had to go a little bit later, it would kind of probably fit into their timeline, because I don't know if we actually want to hire any superintendent who's willing to go ahead and jump ship in the middle of his or her school year anyhow. That being said, could there be a contingency in which we amend this input and while the entire superintendent search focus? And the reason why is because, and this is totally out of your control, we just had a situation yesterday in which one of the members of this board resigned. And so now a large portion of my city, a city of 275,000 people, actually, I'm going to be yelled at by our demographic people. It's actually larger than that. The only city of color, now about half of our city has not been disenfranchised on this board. And so, as far as I know, everyone who is a voting member on this board, all of their opinion has to be included. And now, a very important person who is supposed to be representing my community is not going to be here to actually weigh these things out.
We continue to say this is the board's process. Ultimately, the board will decide, and we will adjust.
So for the record, yes, it can be amended.
That's correct. It can be.
Thank you.
Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to talk because I didn't know you took up my time. I didn't know that. I'd like to see, I see climate in here a lot, Dr. Joseph. I think you guys did a great job on that. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see culture interwoven more with the climate in the parts, with the different categories of what the public wants to see. So that's just a comment. But otherwise, I think that you have climate in there a lot, but I think that culture has to be interwoven with that also. Also, too, I have to agree with my colleagues who have brought up what I basically call it the feedback loop. Amazing amount of information. There's a big difference between extending the timeline and then just kind of slowing things down a bit. My colleague, Trustee Baron, brought up that we have an unusual situation right now. So we will have 6 trustees right now until we go forward with the process. And so we want to make sure that our entire district is represented, not just 6 districts. And so this is something that maybe we can look at. I mean, it's not set in stone. And you guys seem extremely skillful and extremely experienced and talented and being able to kind of roll with the punches as far as what we're going to do here. So we have an unusual situation here. I want to make sure that our entire community is represented. And District B matters to me just as much as my District G. So that's that. The last thing is, if we were to do something like slowing it down or amending or revising the timeline, we need to get the October meetings that are now scheduled for 9 o'clock. We need to get those scheduled. If they're going to be changed, the community wants to know, are they going to be at 9 o'clock? Are they going to be at 4 o'clock? I realize 4 of our 11 board members are going to the council conference on October 16th. So I don't hold much hope that that 9 o'clock is going to be changed, but maybe the other ones could. So this is what I do when I find out that you take up part of my time. So these are all just comments. The only question would be, you can work with us on that, right?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you, Trustee
It's doable.
Cavazos.
Thank you.
All right. Trustee.
You had time. You had more time.
I think we're good. Thank you.
No, ma'am.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your brevity, Trustee Cavazos. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Thank you. They're in. Gracias. Trustee Brooks?
Did Brenda go?
Trustee Brooks?
No.
Did I leapfrog you? I'm sorry. Trustee Zamora, I'm going to turn on your mic.
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a question as I was reading the leadership profile report, and this is something that I've been pushing for and asking for, the PCG climate culture study that was done. Was that PCG report included in this profile report that was created?
Not to my knowledge, but I'll defer to.
No.
Yes.
Okay. 'cause
No.
Definitively no. And however, it was included in the profile when we selected, when we did the search firm process.
So if we want to include it this time around,
Yes.
is that something, an ask that we can do, or is that a motion that has to happen?
Something, forgive me, Trustee Zamora.
No, you're okay.
Yeah, thank you. Something to consider when it comes to the PCG profiles, that was done 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago. So that information, we may have like updated data on the administrators, but I mean, the analysis, it's something to consider, just as I wanted to put that in the record for you to consider.
Okay. So I don't think I got an answer. Was it a motion that needs to happen, or is that an ask that we do?
I believe that's an ask as part of your motion.
Okay.
So far, the only feedback that we received in terms of changes would be the Trustee Cavazos mentioned culture and climate being more of united intertwined in this report. So that's the one piece that we've heard. If you have that particular piece, whoever is doing the motion should consider including the feedback that's been reviewed. And I'm happy to,
Okay.
that's something
Thank
to
you.
consider. Council, did you have something to add?
Yeah, we're not taking motions on this. They're just listening and getting your guys' feedback, like we've done, like with the legislation topic, for example. We actually didn't need to take public comment either, but it's okay that we did, because we can always take more public comment than required.
Oh, I see. Okay, you're right. Thank you for that. Well, grateful for the public comment that was provided. Excellent. Okay, colleagues, I'm going to keep it going here. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. Could you just remind us what the next steps are? We're doing focus group, and then what does the process look like beyond that?
Yes, so we will finish the focus groups. We will have the profile up on the website, and we'll have a link for people to provide feedback on the profile. Once we finish the focus groups, we'll collect the feedback that was given to us from the community on the profile. We'll make the revisions based upon that, unless you give us other data you'd like us to look at to incorporate. And then on September 26th, we would bring a new revised profile to you for you to review once again and ultimately approve or give us more feedback before you approve it.
Thank you. And then one question is that when we're going to determine the length of service that we're going to be offering for this person? Is that the end?
I'd like to turn that over to Nicole to answer that question about the contract negotiations. Nicole, that was a question from the trustee on length of contract.
Yeah, we can't discuss that today because it's not part of the item that we noticed, but we can certainly bring that back to have that discussion.
The question was, are we going to do it on the 26th?
I don't know if it's slated for the 26th. I don't know what's slated for the 26th. No, contract length. Yeah, I don't know what's slated for the 26th yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to Trustee Sparza-Stroff again.
Okay, I know you're putting the clock on, Trustee Guzman. Here we go. So what I'm worried about is what you said about consensus, and I want to come back to that, so don't. So I'm hearing that we really want to make sure that we have, ensuring that we're getting our community's feedback, and I want that feedback loop we have to revisit that. We want to look at evaluating that individual's experience. We want to avoid any kind of turnover with this appointment, and then we want to look at strategic planning and alignment as we go ahead. My concern, and I want to go back to Trustee Baron, although I represent the entire district and I was appointed by Henderson, I grew up in North Las Vegas. And I want to concur with his sentiment about the lack of representation. I know that there could be potentially, and it's happened, Dr. Joseph, because I did my homework, that you could have a split vote. And if you have a split vote, then it could be that that individual would deny even accepting a consideration. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I really want your opinion on the fact that should we have every district represented here in place with this decision that we're making in your recommendation?
That is best practice.
Thank you so much.
All right, Trustee Guzman, ready to turn on your mic and count your time?
I started my time. Thank you. I have actually a question for my fellow trustee, Zamora, about the PGP. My question is, because we had done it so long ago, not long ago, but like 2 years ago, would it be something that we would share with the candidates rather than use for the leadership profile? Because, and just track me here, it is how the district was under the last superintendent versus what we want through the leadership profile now. That's just my question.
Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Trustee Guzman. For the record, it was actually done in May 2023, so it was a year ago. And I keep bringing it up because they actually, yes, it was with the previous superintendent, but they also brought out solutions. We paid them a lot of money for them to do this, right? So
Yes.
they had the overview, they brought up recommendations and some solutions for the Board of Trustees to consider and for the superintendent to do. So I think we could do that, and I think we could do both. Not just.
I like yes
exclusive.
and.
Okay.
Yes and. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Trustee Cavazos?
Actually, Trustee Zamora took care of that. I just wanted to make sure that we knew that that was in 2023. Thank you.
Feels like a long time ago. Thank you for that. Trustee Barron?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Does anyone recall how much the district paid for this study? And the only reason why I say is because, you know, it seems like a couple of things that I asked for, like like for instance, on Monday, I just found out a couple days ago that it was confirmed that we're actually going to have one, I guess, community meeting. Please mark this down on your calendars. Monday, the 16th at 6 p.m. at Jim Bridger Middle School. Okay, and yours truly will certainly be there. I guess I get to miss out on Monday Night Football, but since there was such a big issue with their money being the question, and $5,000 here and was like a big issue, how much did we pay for this study? And wouldn't it be a good idea to actually put it into action?
I think that was more of a statement than a question.
Both. I think it's a question for everybody to consider.
Thank you for that. Okay, colleagues, I would like to ask a question, given that I haven't had a chance to chime in yet. This is more, thank you, this is a broad, I want to let's see, kind of raise the consciousness around funding. Some of the focus group participants and in the surveys from the executive summary, I see are talking about the having a superintendent who, one of the qualities that they're seeking is to have a superintendent who will advocate for the school district and certainly can navigate complex political environment, right? When it comes to, and I think one thing that may be missing or is not clear is that the superintendent does not control how much money comes to the school district, right? Like those decisions are made by our legislature, and there should be some general understanding that the legislature is on a path to increase and has increased funding over the last at the last legislative session. They have a commission on school funding that are working towards increasing these funds, but it's not guaranteed. And yeah, I think it's really important to raise our consciousness around that, just simply because it is a point of contention, and maybe there's not enough information about how funding works from the state to the school district to then the schools. But I know that the legislature has done a really great job to try to create equity around funding across the board, and yet it is a challenge. So because we're not funded adequately, and there's only like the school board has influence, can influence and can advocate. However, the decision-making power lands strictly in the hands of our legislature. And yeah, so I just want to raise that up as a point so that there is not there's no confusion about the district being the party who can simply just wave the magic wand and add more resources. I know some school districts around the country can increase their tax revenue, ask for tax increase to help fund schools. There's different models that exist out there across the country. CCSD in the state of Nevada specifically, we don't have that authorization from NRS or the legislature. Okay, that's all I have, and that's all I see in the queue, colleagues. Thank you for this rich discussion. HYA, do you all have any? Do you have any other pieces for us?
No, thank you for the opportunity to let us share.
Thank you both. Thank you, all three. I appreciate you, Dr. Adams, Nancy, Dr. Perez, and Dr. Joseph, Sean Joseph. Thank you for that, colleagues. Wishing you all a great rest of your day. We're going to move on. Moving on up. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to item 3.02. That's the Audit Advisory committee appointment. This is an action item to fill a vacancy and appoint one member to the Audit Advisory Committee for a term of 2 years beginning September 2024 through June 2026. It is recommended. Okay, I'm going to pull up, again, colleagues, this is a action item, and so public comment is allowed on this item. If you would like to provide public comment, please submit your yellow card now. Otherwise, once we begin discussion, once I finish my presentation, I will no longer take yellow cards. Okay. So I'm the point of contact for this item, and I'm going to go over a couple of things, 2 things. One, colleagues, I take full responsibility for the position where we are at right now. During the last vote of this item, council approached me. Council was off the dais, handling a concern that took place in the public. And when she came back, she noticed that there was that we did not have a, council, I'm going to mess this up. She knows already. Council, can you please help a colleague, please, and add your piece around it. But I just want to note for the record that I take accountability and appreciate council for bringing it to my attention shortly after the vote, and I just kept going. I dismissed it. I asked her to look into it further, the issue of our vote count, and she did and gave us additional information. So council?
Absolutely, President. Yes, you guys only had 5 trustees present that night, and the appointee you selected, you passed with a 3-2 vote. And we need a NRS 386.330 requires a quorum of elected members, not a quorum of those present. So you essentially took no action. So it's back before the board today.
Thank you, council. So I'm going to move on to the Audit Advisory Committee bylaws. The role of the Audit Advisory Committee is to advise the board in the following areas: strengthening accountability for the stewardship and efficient use of public funds, providing communication link between the external and internal auditors and the board, enhancing transparency of the district's financial operations, and improving public trust in the honesty and integrity of its public officials. Okay. The policy states various pieces around membership and in order staggered terms. It also provides that each committee member shall, in the judgment of the board, meet the following criteria: independence, financial expertise. Each committee member shall be a financial expert who possesses the experience and skills necessary to understand complex and technical financial reporting issues with credentials from one or more of the following areas: business, finance, legal, accounting, auditing, and government and/or corporate finance. One member must have professional expertise in governmental accounting. Okay. And again, this policy provides a variety of pieces that include the importance of financial experience. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take public comment, colleagues, at this time. Thank you. The individuals who we have cards for are Chris Giunkiliani and Vicky Kreidel. Chris, come on up, please.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to thank my trustee, Zamora, who asked me to put an application in for this position. I'm surprised that you're redoing the vote, but I understand, but it wasn't noticed as such. It's really a reconsideration of what you're looking for, and so therefore the agenda is not accurate in my opinion. But I'm saying I'm just as experienced as the other 2 applicants, and they are experienced. But I'm better qualified because I understand how government works, that audits are not just numbers, but verifying policies are clear and also being followed. For example, your internal audit should have made a corrective finding because CCSD applied for and accepted an insurance check for Lundy, but didn't file the state law that requires the check to be deposited with the county treasurer. They should have reported that to audit. and it should have been remedied. I also think your bylaws could use some strengthening as far as how you and what you review and take a look at. When I was at the county, we did not have a county audit committee, so I established one. And I think learning through that process, becoming familiar with GASB and all the other terminologies that are there, I'm well qualified to be able to deal with this. In addition to that, if you're questioning the vote, and maybe the legal can deal with this, when you voted to close Lundy, it was a 3-3 vote. So where is this at? Is it just because it was my application? Are we being petty, or is it something else that's going on as far as that's concerned? So again, the other two applicants are quite qualified, but they have private sector and they hop from one job to another job to another job if you take a look at it. I have been consistent and have chaired Ways and Means for most of my time in the legislature. I served on it for 16 years. I think I know how to do budgets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Vicki. Come on up.
My name is Vicki Kreidel. I am reading this on behalf of Anna Binder, who had an emergency, and she sent this to me. Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, I apologize for not being in attendance, but did not want to miss the opportunity. Tonight, you'll be considering the Audit Advisory Committee appointment to fill the vacancy I left. Of the 3 candidates, Chris G. is the only one comparable to the role that I filled for the community on that committee. She's fierce, she asks the right questions, she wants transparency, accountability, and most importantly, she wants the best for our children, educators, staff, and community. Chris has dedicated her entire life to public service and is revered with great respect. We understand why you're voting again, but I'd like to state that I believe that Chris deserves the support that I received in my last reappointment. There's a swing vote that could sway to her that was swung to me. If said swing vote isn't had, I believe you're going to be a tie vote and nothing will happen. That would be acceptable to leave the seat empty until the new board takes over. Regardless, I hope the swing voter sees this and applies her thoughts and consideration supporting Chris G. serving you and our district on the Audit Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. When reviewing the applications, there are a couple of questions that were asked. One of them is, do you have professional expertise in government accounting? The other one is, do you have children currently enrolled? The purpose of those is to prioritize people who have this, and also the bylaws specifically say that you must be credentialed. So I only see a single applicant available for the board to consider, and I'd like to make a motion to approve Joshua Poirier to serve on the Audit Advisory Committee since he falls in line with the committee bylaws.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. I am happy to second your motion. I do not see, forgive me. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I do see members in the queue, and I'll turn it over to them. We have a live vote, a live action, a live motion. So we will turn it over to colleagues first and then call for the vote. Trustee Baron.
Yeah, I took a look at it earlier, and I didn't see where there was actually something where it said you had to be actually a credentialed or licensed, or did I miss something?
Yes.
I did miss it?
Yes.
Really?
It is, yes. It may be because of, I know we're, some of our new members are still kind of getting the hang of it, but we have an Audit Advisory Committee bylaws and calendar. We recently passed this, recently adopted in actually the end of 2023, in the middle of a year ago. I know this wasn't attached to it, but it is part of our policies in our, on the website. So the Audit Advisory Committee bylaws and calendar is a 3-page document, details membership, communications, education that's needed for all candidates, and responsibilities.
Is it shall or may?
I'm sorry?
Is it shall, or is that a shall or a may?
I see in education. Trustee Brooks, can you please reference what you want to make sure we don't cross paths here. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. The sentence reads, they shall have credentials from one or more of the following areas.
One or more. So that doesn't exclude someone like Chris Giuliani. It says one or more, and obviously she has, just speaking out for Chris Giuliani, and probably for the other applicant, one or more. So it's not excluding her, but it would include her. It would not include her in this, but it would, overall, she's still included, because it's one or more.
Okay.
Unless I don't have any sort of command of the English language.
Thank you, Trustee Barone. Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. Please allow me to read the rest of the sentence. I'll start from the beginning. Each committee member shall be a financial expert who possesses the experience and skills necessary to understand complex and technical financial reporting issues with credentials from one or more of the following areas: business finance, legal, accounting, auditing, and government and/or corporate finance.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos, you're in the queue.
Sure am. Okay, so when was this? Can we go over that just a little bit again? When, first of all, have we maintained that same credentialing requirement over the last few folks that were appointed? When was this changed? And is there a definition of credentialing? State, federal, local, what is it?
Which one do you want to start with first?
Any of them.
Can you repeat your questions?
Sure. When was this stated or changed? I think you said January or December of 23 or January 24. So the credentialing part that Trustee Brooks is speaking of, the last one that we appointed, I believe, was Anna Binder, which is why we have the vacancy now because she resigned. Was she credentialed?
I can't speak to what specific changed and when it changed and whether this was included in that. That's not part of the agenda item here today.
That's fine. We can move on. Okay. So can we define the specific credentials? Because we just finished listening to Nancy Perez on HYA, a very accomplished woman who was conducting, was helping basically spearhead our search. And one of the things she talked about was having a balanced individual and having a balanced experience, not only for our superintendent, but just in all respects. So what I'm looking at here, and all three individuals appear to have very good qualifications. I believe Chris is retired. I'm looking at the motion that was made for Joshua, and no disrespect to him, amazing experience. He is Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix Vice President and Controller. I think they're doing a little bit of preparation for that right now, don't you think? And I'm also having a question about whether there could possibly be some kind of conflicts of interest. So I am not going to support that motion. I am still supporting the person I voted for before when we were not informed that the 3-2 vote was not going to stand until 6 days after the vote. I just think that if we are going to state that they need to be credentialed, and that is the reason, then we need to have a very clear definition of the credentials. Thank you. I'd like to have that now.
Trustee Satori?
Yes, thank you. Well, then my request would be that if candidates do not qualify based on the credentials, that they should not be brought before the board, because I don't think it's reasonable that we are putting candidates through this if we're not going to consider them. With that being said, though, I would put and looking at the candidates, I do think they all three have great resumes and qualifications. I would put my support behind Chris G, because I think this position The amount of decision-making requires not only financial knowledge, but an understanding of our community, someone that has been in education. I just think she is very well-rounded in what is required for this position, so I would advocate for her to be nominated, be appointed for this role.
Thank you, Trustee Satori.
Sure, I will second. Oh, no, that was not what the vote was.
Oh, you're seconding her?
Did you?
There is a live, there's a live
There's a live
motion.
motion.
So until that live motion, action takes place, then we can have another motion. Trustee Satori, and for the rest of our colleagues, the practice of our board is to bring everyone before the board who applies to all committees.
Okay.
Thank you. And we can
for that
revisit that
clarification.
practice in the future. Thank you. Maybe there's an area for us to clean up there so that only qualified candidates apply. Trustee Zamora?
Thank you, Madam President. Question for Trustee Brooks. What is the policy or the bylaw number that you were reading from?
Trustee Brooks?
It's the bylaws of the Audit Advisory Committee. Each committee has bylaws that govern their behavior, including how membership is appointed, and then those bylaws are approved by the board through a public vote.
Okay, and then President Garcia Morales, you said that we just updated the bylaws to include the credentials last year, no?
Forgive me, I said I could not reference specifically what was changed. I don't have it at the top of my mind, but we, those of us who were on the board on June 7, 2023, passed and approved the bylaw updates.
So when that was passed, did we go back and audit the Audit Advisory Committee to figure out if they had credentials for the members that are there now?
The committee members that have a term that's based off of the committee bylaws. So no, we did not go back and audit the audit committee.
Okay, that was all my questions.
Thank you. Trustee Sparza-Stroffigan?
Thank you, Madam President. So I will say just, I did a little bit of homework and I looked at the existing members of the committee. One is a staff accountant, one is an internal audit, has internal audit experience, CIA. The other one was very comprehensively experienced, does forensic internal audits, fraud, I'll say that again, security management, cybersecurity, and risk management. So I want to stick with my original support because, Christian Kaliani, you're here tonight. And I don't see any of the other candidates that are applying for this. And I've seen you here more than once for the community. You have extensive government experience, which I don't see anyone else on this potential audit group has your experience. So in order for it to be balanced, I think we should have that perspective of having someone that has created an audit committee, has served as a past legislator, has served as a past commissioner, and has been a former educator. So, I mean, in this case, I feel that Christian Kaliani, you are overqualified for this committee. So I would say to you that I would put my full support and change, and I did make the motion, I believe, last time, and I would put my full support behind you.
Trustee Cavazos, you're in the queue, but you've already shared, and it looks like everyone else has shared in the queue. Colleagues, what substantial questions do we have? Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Brooks, did you have one more thing before we call for the vote? Trustee Brooks and/or Trustee Barron?
Thank you, Madam President. We may very well find ourselves in a position where we don't fill this position, but I do want to remind the board what the definition of credential is. It's a piece of any document that details a qualification, competence, or authority issued to an individual by a third party with a relevant or de facto authority or assumed competence to do so. So there is a definition of what is a credential. I don't think we have to invent a definition. One exists, and the members that are currently serving are credentialed on the Audit Advisory Committee, and the last appointee that left was the only remaining member that did not have a credential.
Trustee Barron?
Yes, thank you again, Madam President. Yes, I don't think that the last member who left, I don't think she left because she was not credentialed. We're talking about qualifications. Again, by the definition, Chris June Kiliani is not excluded. She actually is included because it says or. And of course, she is included because she actually wrote the book on about a very similar committee at the county level. So I think if you were entrusted of actually forming a group that does this very same thing, you can't get any more credentialed than that. Thank you.
Cool. Trustee Sparso-Straffican?
So I just want to talk about language because in a previous position, I was a commissioner on the State Board of Education for professional standards. Language matters. And just because the word says shall, it does not say must. So I think we need to look at that. And my question would be, just because this credentialing changed after the fact, we offer provisionals to teachers. So maybe this candidate could get credentialed after the fact. So that's just me being the problem solver. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos, and then we're going to call, I'm calling the vote. Please, I don't want to have to do that because Trustee Cavazos.
Thank you. Language does matters. Yes, I am a former English professor, so yeah. I'm going to call your attention to page 2 of 7 on the Audit Advisory Committee appointment. It says, highlight your experience or credentials in one or more of the following areas: government or corporate finance, accounting, auditing, and or legal. Your narrative should indicate key parts of your resume or other important aspects of your background that may not be readily apparent. Please attach additional sheets if necessary. We've already gone over Christie's application. We know her qualifications, but language does matter. So we may have that on the bylaws. What does it say on the application? On the application, it says, highlight your experiences or credentials in one or more of the following areas. So I would ask my colleagues to please pay attention to that. She's followed the rules, she's filled it out, she has the experience, and she's the type of balanced individual that Nancy Perez just finished telling us about. Thank you.
All right, colleagues. We have a motion on the floor by Trustee Brooks, a second by yours truly. Please cast your vote. All right, colleagues, we have a motion, a 3-3, so that motion does not pass. And at this time, I'll entertain another motion, or we can take no action. Trustee Cavazos?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to take this opportunity with honor to nominate Chris June Kiliani for our vacant position on the Audit Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Trustee Guzman?
I second.
Thank you, Trustee Guzman. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Cavazos, a second by Trustee Guzman, to move to adopt, accept Chris June Kiliani for the Audit Advisory Committee. Please cast your vote. Okay. All right, colleagues. We again have a 3 yay, a 3 no, and at this time we have again another option to take no action or take another motion. I don't see any colleagues in the queue. That is a cue to me that we can move on. All right, colleagues, we are moving on to item 3.03, public hearing on and possible approval of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Clark County School District and the Clark County Education Association regarding extra pay for extra duty schedule. Okay. This is an action item, colleagues, so we will be taking public comment. Individuals who have not submitted the yellow public speaker card, please do so now. Otherwise, once we begin, we will once we begin the presentation, we will no longer accept public comment cards. Say that 3 times, public comment cards. Mr. Okazaki, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Larson Mitchell. For the record, I'm John Okazaki. I'm General Counsel for the Clark County School District. I'm here tonight to present to you a memorandum of agreement that has been agreed upon by the Clark County School District and the Clark County Education Association. Nevada Revised Statute 288.153 requires that any new, extended, or modified collective bargaining agreement term between local government employer and an employee organization be approved by the governing body of the local government employer at a public hearing. That's what we're here for tonight. CCA and CCSD drafted the memorandum of agreement that you have before you, amending the language of the 2023-2025 negotiated agreement regarding Article 37. Both parties have bargained for this and agreed to this new language, which addresses the concerns regarding certain extra duty pay categories and pay rates. There are additional costs in the amount of approximately $700,000 associated with entering into this memorandum of agreement. If you look at the attachment to the memorandum of agreement, what we have done here is we have added some positions which exist and have not been covered, have been not covered in the agreement. So we've added those positions, and then also in Article 37.4, we increased the ticket taker salary or pay to $20 an hour in an effort to get more help in that area. And at this time, I'll just answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Okay, before we go into questions, colleagues, I'm going to go ahead and take public comment on this item. I believe we have, can tell them, oh, I'm sorry, 303. No public comment on 303? Okay, great. Super, colleagues, move right into questions. Trustee Guzman.
I just wanted to make a quick announcement that I was told to do by council that I am no longer with NSCA, so I will be voting on this.
Thank you for that. Trustee Sparza-Strophigan.
Thank you. Madam President, I know you might want to address further discussion, but I'd like to make a motion to approve 3.03, public hearing and possible approval of the memorandum of agreement between the Clark County School District and the Clark County Education Association regarding extra pay for extra duty.
Thank you, Trustee Sparza-Strophigan. Trustee Cavazos.
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Excellent. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Sparza-Strophigan and a second by Trustee Cavazos. Please cast your vote. Oh, thank you, colleagues. The motion passes 6-0. Thank you, John. All right, colleagues, we're going to move on to the transfer of appropriation between funds. Fun. All right. This is for possible action. So before we open item 3.04, if there's anyone who's not had a chance to submit their yellow public speaker card, please do so now. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gowdy.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Larson Mitchell, Jason Gowdy for the record. So during the final audit process, we identified a couple of areas for which we needed to make transfers in order to complete our financial statements in compliance with the laws. The first relates to a transfer of approximately $3.6 million from the general fund into the English Language Learners Fund, which is a separate weighted funding, and that's in order to bring that into balance and ensure that all general administrative costs from central are covered with general funds as opposed to the weighted funds. So there were some additional increases related to salaries, supplies, and services that were general administrative that needed to be covered by the general fund. So that is the first one. The second one is that there was a grant for which we did not receive all of the anticipated funding of right around $560,000. Therefore, we needed to transfer the $560,000 to that grant fund to balance out and bring it to zero so that we could properly write that out and close that grant. And so those are the two pieces, and I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, we do not have public comment on this item. However, I'll entertain discussion and a motion. Trustee Baron.
Yes, Thank you very much. Just real quick, there's no federal money that's been allocated through any federal grants or anything that will come in conflict with any spending, with any necessary stipulations or restrictions, right, that will conflict with other funds?
Jason got the record. I am not sure I understand the question. So if you
Well,
could-
it just, sometimes, we get money that's allocated to school districts. Sometimes it comes from the federal government with certain stipulations that it has to be spent for certain things. We don't have any conflicts, right? That's already been scrubbed.
Do you have a specific example, Trustee Barone?
Yeah. If you take money that's supposed to come in, for instance, for a parks fund, it has to be spent on parks in a municipality. I think people who would be in an audit committee would probably know that.
I meant
So-
specifically about the school district, if you had something
Well,
specific.
hey, from my own experience in government, I only ask just to make sure that all the funds that are being transferred between the different, all the money that's being transferred between the different funds are not in conflict. That's all I'm asking.
Jason Getty, for the record, for these two specific pieces, these are not in conflict. There's no grant rules that preclude us from doing this. It's actually required because we actually didn't receive the grant funds, so therefore there technically isn't any stipulations around the specific grant funds. And the other EL and at-risk is a separate, it's not technically a grant, it's the weighted funding that relates to the pupil-centered funding plan. So we also have grants on both the revenue side and the expense side that verify compliance with the different grant requirements. We also go through an annual audit, which we have that, and we also have a number of different NDE audits that address our grants as well.
For the record, they're all in compliance, so we'll be good.
Jason, got it for record. I can't say that everything is compliance because I do not know that. We're a large district.
To the best of your knowledge.
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
That's all I'm looking for. That's an answer to my question. Thank you so much.
Ooh, Trustee Brooks?
Thank you, Madam President. Could you provide some insight on why this grant, why this is required due to this grant?
Jason, get it for record. You're talking for a legal requirement or what happened to require this transfer?
What happened?
Okay. Jason, got it for the record. Madam President, member of the board, Superintendent Dr. Larson Mitchell. So there's specific requirements as it relates to grants, and we work with the Nevada Department of Education. There were some transitions at the Nevada Department of Education in the grants department, and some transitions of some of the timing as it relates to what we call the final submissions of grants. During that process, there were some miscommunications between CCSD and NDE as to some of the changes that were required, and therefore some of the submissions were later than were required under some of the changes. We have been subsequently working very closely with the NDE and their staff to identify changes, challenges that we have, and we believe we have a really good process in place now to ensure this doesn't happen in the future.
Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Thank you, Trustee Brooks. I'm going to turn it over to colleagues who are in the queue before we to see if there is seconds and or just a second. Is there a second in the queue?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Trustee Bustamante Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Brooks, a second by Trustee Bustamante Adams. Please cast your vote. All right, colleagues, thank you very much. Thank you. That motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Gowdy. All right, colleagues, we're going to move on to item 4.01. That's public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. Before I open item 4.01, is there anybody who has not had a chance to complete their public speaker card? If not, please do so now. This is not WWE. I don't know what that was, but here we are. All right. Is Mr. Bayless present?
I'm a little upset you didn't shoot me
Okay.
off on that.
It looks like we've got some cards coming in, so we will allow those cards to come in. Excellent. Okay, I think that completes yellow public speaker cards. We've got Dr. Bemo come on up. After Dr. Bimol, we will have Fernando Romero.
Good evening, Tiffany Beamel for the record. Having recently moved schools for the first time in my career and getting to see a different side of the coin, it's a bit of a shock to me how different interpretations of these grading guidelines can be for different students, schools, teachers, days of the week, it seems. What are we even doing? Sometimes I don't feel like I know. I teach high school. There's a big push for career and college readiness. And I've had some amazing principals who've wondered with me, what the frig happens the day after graduation. Our students must be ready for the rigor of college, careers, trade schools, the military. They must be ready for whatever the next step is. The minute they step off the stage at the Thomas and Mack or the Orleans, they are entering into the next chapter. The now what? Our students must understand the relevance of what they are learning in their classes. It should definitely be more than because the adults said so, or because the state said so, or because the standardized test said so. Relevance to the how and the why they need this for the day after graduation. That should be a focus and consideration for these learning intentions and success criteria, right? What does this have to do with the day after graduation? What are we doing? Have you looked at the standards for kindergarten? Write 3 sentences by the end of the first month of school. Read at a first grade Lexile score by the end of the first semester. Do first grade math by the end of kindergarten school year. High expectation, high reward, right? So let's maintain that momentum throughout middle school and high school. Keep those high expectations and prepare these students for the day after graduation, for career in college and trade school and the military and whatever else. Are the grading criteria really preparing our students for career in college and the day after graduation? Is the minimum F helpful or a hindrance? Thank you.
Thank you. Fernando?
Buenas tardes, Madam President, Superintendent Brenda Larson Mitchell, Board of Trustees. My name is Fernando Romero, 57-year member of this community. A few months ago, I contacted District Attorney Steve Wilson regarding a rumor that was floating around that Trustee Katie Williams not only not residing in the district, but supposedly represented, but that she was not even residing in Las Vegas. She was living and working in a different state. D.A. Wilson answered that he was aware of it. Today, September 12th, I found out that Trustee Williams had resigned on the board, a day late and $1 short. This is to inform this body that I will formally ask the DA to continue his investigation to include when President Evelyn Garcia Morales was made aware that Ms. Williams was no longer residing in Las Vegas and her district, and why she, Ms. Garcia Morales, continued to refrain from divulging this, and why she continued to allow Ms. Williams to vote on certain issues that otherwise would have had different results. I'm sure the students of Lundy will also be glad of this. I will ask the DA if felony charges can be brought against Garcia Morales and other elected board members who may have been in collusion with Trustee Williams, and in fact, now know also she was not residing in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Tumburo, present. Sandra, come on up. Followed by Donna, you're going to have to teach me your last name. Samatuski.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Tumburo. As a matter of general public interest, I want to address the critical labor shortage and non-board-approved MOA that went into effect on May 21st, 2024. I stand before the board and you, Interim Superintendent Larson Mitchell, once again. Unfortunately, I am alone this evening because 2 of my colleagues are addressing serious family concerns. Sadly, one is tending to a very sick father and the other is grieving the death of an immediate family member. But please understand, we as a team will continue to address what we consider to be an inequity within CCSD's pay scales. As previously stated, we, a small group of current teachers, have been isolated and discriminated against. The subgroup who I am referring to are CCSD employees, all who started out as teachers, eventually within their careers became administrators, and then retired. Now, during this critical labor shortage, we dedicated CCSD employees have all agreed to return to the classroom to help CCSD fill the much-needed vacancy positions. We are all highly qualified, knowledgeable, and skilled licensed teachers. We all were provided written offers between January of 2024 and May 21st of 2024 using one pay scale. This pay scale is the same pay scale that has been used to pay other administrators who fall into the same category as us for the last 10 or more years. For what appears to be discriminatory, if not vindictive reasons, a new MOA was signed on May 21st, 2024 to switch the pay scale to that which was used to determine our pay. This new, but technically old transitional pay scale was created and used back in 2015, almost 10 years ago. It has not been updated or revised to reflect any of the salary increases that were adopted over the years. It does not even take into consideration the basic cost of living increase for the last 10 years. This swapped out pay scale reduced our salaries from between $35,000 to $50,000, depending on the individual's experience and education. Each one of us was provided our offer in writing. We signed it as well as the district representative. We made life decisions and commitments based on this agreed-upon salary offer. Now we are receiving salaries that are drastically below what we deserve. They are dramatically lower than our colleagues who work in the same school as us. I myself left the charter to return to CCSD and brought a fellow colleague with me. I have over 30 years of experience and more than a master's degree. He is a second-year teacher and is making $10,000 more, yet I am mentoring and supporting him. How is this possible? We, this very small subgroup, are not asking for anything more than our colleagues and peers are earning. We don't want anything more than we were initially offered. We have been told that the MOA was adopted because of a mistake that was being corrected. This was not a mistake. This was a bait and switch. There are employees who are currently working at this very time who are being paid using that original pay scale which our initial offer was based on. Their salaries were not reduced. It is merely because they signed their contracts before the unfair MOA was signed. We want the salary to...
Thank you. Vicki Kreidel? I'm sorry, I mentioned Donna. No, that was Donna. Donna, yes, thank you. Donna, you're up, followed by Vicki Kreidel and Beatriz Rubio.
Good evening, trustees. My name is Donna Samatolsky, and I reside in District B. I thank you for the opportunity to ask questions regarding the actions of Katie Williams. As President Morales and Trustee Brooks were aware that Trustee Williams was not living in District B nor in the state of Nevada when she was allowed to vote on several crucial issues, my questions are, do those votes stand? Question 2, was Katie Williams paid $750 for each meeting when she voted while not in compliance with residents' requirements? And number 3, has either trustees mentioned been held accountable for allowing these requirements to be ignored? Katie Williams abused my trust in her as an elected official. I now look for accountability from the board how this was allowed to happen. Thank you.
Go ahead, Vicki.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Kreidel. I'm a reading teacher in Clark County School District, and I'm the president of NEA of Southern Nevada. Tonight I'm here to talk about letters training. I've been getting a lot of members and colleagues who are very concerned about how this is being rolled out. For those of you who don't know, letters training stands for Language Essentials for Teachers of Reading and Spelling. It's created by Lexia. I believe it has a lot of valuable components, things that, especially if you're an experienced reading teacher, that you need to know. The problem is it's a 2-year training, requires approximately 300 hours of educators, some of it on their own time. It's being required of all licensed educators. I even have some friends who are counselors, no longer in the classroom, not teaching anything, and they're having to do this training. Some administrators are paying the teachers for their time outside of the contract day to do the homework. Some are not. It's a directive. It's a directive from the district, so that it's being required of everybody, including myself. But some people are paying teachers for their time and some are not. I'm asking you to please make sure that everyone is getting paid for their time outside of the contract day. You're going to lose a lot of people if you push everyone to do the training and you don't compensate people for their time outside of the contract day. The other thing is, someone brought up a good point. They said with all the scripted curriculum that we use now, we're directed for instructional minutes. Every moment is accounted for in our instructional day. Why is this still necessary? Because we're using a curriculum. We're being told what small groups we're doing, what we're teaching in small group, what we're teaching during our instructional day, what curriculum we have to use. The pacing is all given to us. So why is this still necessary? The educators are asking me this question and I don't know the answer to it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky. Beatriz?
Good evening. My name is Beatriz Rubio, and I am here to express my continued concern regarding the mistreatment I experienced within the TIS division, specifically under the management of Jessica Fry and Marilyn Delmont, which I have raised previously. In February, Jessica Fry informed me that I did not pass my probation due to an alleged incompatibility. Despite my performance records indicating otherwise, when I questioned this decision, she asserted that it was within her authority to make such decision. I escalated the matter to Marilyn Delmont, who, despite reviewing my performance documentation, maintained that the decision was final and ultimately hers. She stated that following the chain of command, I needed to speak with Brenda Larson Mitchell as a next step. But Brenda Larson Mitchell, Jessica Fry, and Alba Espinosa are friends. So, while they're friends, nothing is going to happen. However, when discussing this with Brenda Larson Mitchell, she stated that it was irrelevant whether they had a friendship or not. Given the connections between Brenda Larson Mitchell, Jessica Fry, and Alba Espinosa, I fear that my case may not given a fair and impartial review. I have followed the chain of command as advised, but the lack of resolution and apparent conflict of interest have left me feeling that my concerns are being systematically ignored. I respectfully request that this matter be reviewed by an independent party to ensure a fair evaluation of the situation and address the procedural issues I have encountered. Thank you.
Is Mrs. Denise Paxton present? Followed by Camilla Bywaters.
Good evening, trustees and interim superintendent. My name is Denise Paxton. I am the professional learning director for the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement. And our motto is engaging, empowering civics. We are Nevada's home to civic engagement. We believe in service above self. We practice and promote integrity and civility. We champion student-centered experiences, and we are nonpartisan. This morning at the Now of Learning conference here in Las Vegas, Adriana King, who's associated with Workforce Connections, shared a quote that we are not judging employees by what they know, but what they can do with what they know. And this is the need now and in the future for our students to have what we now cite durable skills, formerly known as soft skills. The durable skills align with the disciplinary skills in the Nevada State standards, content standards for social studies, and should be taught across all content areas. Through inquiry, student-driven, authentic learning experiences that the Nevada Center for Civic Engagement supports, these programs build the durable skills within our students, our workforce, and ultimately across our state. Our mission is to open doors to democracy by supporting teachers, empowering students, and engaging the community for a more educated Nevada. My purpose to be here before you tonight is to share with you some of the programs that we can offer and support teachers and students within Clark County to help build those durable skills. We are the home to National History Day in Nevada, Kidvention and Mock Election, We the People, Ask the Expert, and Law Day. A couple of the opportunities, I'll go very quickly. This Saturday, we are hosting a workshop called Spark Curiosity, which is a training for 4th through 12th grade teachers for National History Day. Teachers will receive stipends, they will receive funding for classroom supplies, as well as classroom support from us. September 17th is the kickoff for mock election through Kidvention, and it was previously housed by Kids in Voting, supported by former Senator Joyce Woodhouse, who is now on our board. We're really excited about. And the ballots are no longer, Nevada ballots, they are kid-focused to.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Please, thank you. Thank you. Please leave them with Caitlin. We really appreciate your time. Ms. Bywaters?
Camila Bywaters, candidate for the Board of School Trustees in District E, president of the Las Vegas Alliance of Black School Educators. You all are just absolutely amazing. I continue to get phone calls about the continued madness that continues to be this board. Some of you are going out with the bang. Here is what the community is asking President Garcia Morales and Vice President Irene Bustamante and to the board attorney that we have a special meeting to get an appointed trustee. Today, there were votes made without representation of an entire community. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And this has continued to happen. And we're talking about, you had a whole, HYA is here talking about best practices. Once it was found out that this young lady had left her seat, disregarded and disrespected her community, we should have had a special meeting to move forward with a process. It is clear that some of you, and the community knows who the some of you are, we don't need to say those names, we know. It is clear that you disregard this community, and the community is ready for some of you to resign because you've done us a disservice. We couldn't even make a decision on an individual who would serve this community properly today in Chris G. We could not make that decision. I don't even know if you're going to be able to make a decision about an appointed person. And then I'm flabbergasted to hear that today we heard that we're not sure if all monies are in compliance. I'm so glad that we have our appointed board members here asking, and our seasoned board members, holding our electeds accountable and asking questions about language. I cannot wait to get on this board so that we can do a review and revision and update of all of the policies. A disservice. The young lady that just came up has valid concerns. It has been, oh, she knows this person, he knows this person, they're not going to serve me appropriately. And if that's how she feels, that's how she feels. The community is tired. And we know that you're going to do what you want to do. We know that. Last thing, you have candidates who are going to be coming. I am asking that you have a process for them to be able to have a question and answer with the people who are applying to be a superintendent. I heard you mention we care about them for the scheduling, so let's consider that as well.
Eileen? Edie, come on up, please. Heidi. Oh, did I miss Denise Paxton? Oh, but Denise already spoke. Yep, thank you. Camilla is already on board. Eileen, come on up. Edie, Heidi, teach me. Tell me.
It's Edie, just like the letters E-D.
Eileen Edie for the record. When I was teaching, we learned that when we were doing parent-teacher conferences, we need to give 2 positives before we lead with a negative. So first of all, I want to say thank you for serving. Thank you for being up there. Thank you for representing our communities and making decisions that affect them every day. I would also like to thank Trustee Cavazos, Trustee Zamora, Trustee Guzman, Trustee Esperanza Stoffrigan, I hope I said that correct, Trustee Satori, and Trustee, I'm sorry, I may be forgetting, I wasn't quite ready. The 5 of you who signed the form asking for an investigation into whether or not Katie Williams is actually living here, thank you for that. District B's have been without adequate leadership for quite a while now. She missed, 15 meetings? Why did it take so long for us to look into that? We need some kind of a policy on the books so that this doesn't happen again. In the process of her not being here, we've had parents calling for the resignation of a principal, and we have closed a school. This is abominable. It's not okay. This is not how we serve our community, and we certainly are not doing it with fidelity. You are stewards of these schools. 300,000 kids are counting on us to do the right thing. We have let someone make votes she should not have made, and whether you agree with her or not, it shouldn't have happened. We need to immediately re-examine those votes. We need to seek with counsel and figure out how we do that. We need to figure out how this doesn't happen again. And we need to also make sure that in the future, we are allowed as trustees to be a part of the community, to be present in the schools, and to be someone that our community and our staff looks at as a resource that is helpful. Thank you.
Chris Giunkiliani.
Thank you, Madam President, Madam Superintendent, Chris Giunkiliani. The issue of Trustee Williams isn't over, but before I start into that, I wanted to thank you for your kind comments. And for those that voted against me, that's your right to do. I don't have a problem with that, okay? But I don't tweet. I just got a tweet. Katie Williams, how's that feel, Chris G? How tacky or petty is that? All right, now. So, the issue is not over. She was being paid with public tax dollars, so the public should know as of what date the investigation was determined by Metro that she moved. This issue of collusion and cover-up enabled by your DA, other trustees and staff need to be made public. Some of you knew, and that's wrongful exercise of your official power if you're an elected. You had and still have a duty to disclose laws being broken, which include assisting her to deceive, to call in, to decide what meetings to come in person for. All of that is form of collusion, which is illegal. Your DA has to follow the Supreme Court Code of Ethics Conduct as well, and is not helping to conceal a crime violates that code of conduct. The bar would need to be investigated on that part of it. The issue comes down to who knew and who did not bother to do the right thing ethically to report it. It's not whether you like somebody or not. If you are a witness to something that's illegal, including somebody moving purposefully out of their own district, let alone out of the state, then that is a crime, and you have an obligation and a moral responsibility to do something about that. It's a sad day when power and control are the reasons some of you govern. The public deserves better behavior. The message sent to students, it's okay to lie, cheat, or collude if you can get away with it in order to get your own way. Now, most of you don't have that intent, but some of you have allowed that twist in your minds with this culture and climate that's going on within the school district to take away your objectivity. You can like somebody or dislike them and still work with them. It ought to be your obligation, and I don't see that happening. So anybody coming in for interviews, for the superintendency is so key this time around. Why did the public, God bless them, said their two top priorities? And the top priority is not only about retaining your employees, like and this young lady that came up here about the discrimination going on salary wages. Those are things that need to be taken into consideration because they add to the culture and the climate position. So I just wish you luck. Thank you for.
All right, colleagues, we're going to move on to item 5.01. That's the upcoming meeting of the Board of Trustees on Thursday, September 26th at 5 p.m. here in the boardroom. I'm seeking a motion for adjournment. Trustee Guzman.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Trustee Zamora.
I will second that motion.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. Colleagues, we have a motion by Trustee Guzman, a second by Trustee Zamora. Please cast your vote. Thank you, colleagues. That motion passes 6-0. The meeting time is 7:22 p.m.